Good morning, everybody. I'm Andy Reakes. I'm Director of Growth and Development with the JIB and ECS. So thank you for joining us today for this session on digital skills. So for those of you who know and have kept up to date with communications that we've been doing, particularly over the last couple of years, very keen to make sure that as JIB, we are supporting businesses in this essential area to make sure that businesses are equipped for the future, workforces are equipped for the future, what that looks like in terms of raising the bar in terms of competence, but also making sure that there is, I think, the adequate mix within the buildings on focus on what's coming, moving away from some of the traditional processes that we may have for everything from the day-to-day running of a company through to some of the installation work, some of the maintenance works that our members traditionally do. And I thought this was a great opportunity to have a bit of a discussion on what's coming, what resources are out there, and ultimately what JIB membership means in terms of benefits for you and for your teams. So we've got a great lineup of speakers today. So want to introduce Roger Horn, JIB's Head of Membership, who's going to give a brief overview of some of those benefits, what that means, and ultimately a bit of discussion on what partnerships are coming down the pipeline so that we can, again, better support these companies for making sure that they are ready for those future challenges. And great to have on the call Zeshan Sattar, who's Senior Industrial Relations Director at CompTIA. And as I say, certainly one of the leading voices in terms of skills, certification, everything across that digital space. So wonderful to have Zeshan on the call today. So I think as we stand at the moment, I've I suppose started to talk about a bit of that crossroads between technological innovation, industry transformation, and what we've been seeing in terms of rapid advancement in terms of tools, techniques, technology. So this is everything from building information modeling, what we've talked about as a golden thread of information, but also things like Internet of Things, building energy management systems into programmable logics and controls, in I suppose automation, how the industry is developing, and I think certainly faster than ever before, but also what the business needs to do to ensure that you have professionals that will have the skills necessary to enhance efficiency, to boost profitability, to improve security, because with all of these technologies comes new security risks, and foster sustainability. So that's what we want to do today, is have a bit of a discussion and introduction on some of these aspects and talk about what's available. So agenda, as I say, we will run through briefly in terms of JIB member benefits with Roger, then the role of CompTIA, UK White Landscape, Zeshan, and then I will cover off briefly work that ECS has done in this area for occupational frameworks and greater digital coverage. And then we've got some time for questions. I will hand over to Roger to talk us through some of the aspects around benefits and membership, please.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Andy. A warm welcome to Zeshan. I'm really looking forward to your session. I've had a sneak peek at the slides and there's some interesting stuff in there. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk about the JIB, its membership, and why I think it's important. I've just a few slides to talk through. So I stand between you and Zeshan. So thank you. Oh, yeah, preempted. Thank you, Andy. So first slide. For those that may not be fully familiar, the JIB plays a crucial role in supporting and advancing the sector. Were established by the ECA in Unite, well, it would have been a craft unit, the EPTU, back in the late 60s, and its benefits extend far beyond its direct members. So today I just wanted to share with you some of the key reasons why JIB membership is important to our industry, and these three pillars start to make that illustration. So firstly, JIB is instrumental in setting and maintaining high standards within the industry through its well-recognised electrotechnical certification scheme, the ECS scheme, which amazing work that Andy's sort of been doing, amongst other things, all the other things he does on the ECS scheme and advancing it. It ensures that electrical contractors and operatives possess the skills, knowledge and competency to deliver safe and high quality work. This will assure clients that they're receiving services from appropriately qualified personnel. In terms of the JIB agreement, the JIB promotes fair and equitable employment practices through its collective agreement, the handbook. That's the kind of the heart of sort of the JIB, and support from an experienced industrial relations team. As we establish fair wages, benefits, and working conditions. This helps to protect workers while also giving employers clear guidelines to follow. And this in turn helps to create a stable and harmonious working environment and a harmonious industrial relations environment, which I think most people would agree without the JIB, we wouldn't have had that for the last sort of like 50 years or so. By promoting the high standards, JIB helps elevate the overall reputation of the sector, and businesses that are JIB members or work with JIB members benefit from increased trust and credibility, which then translates into stronger client relationships and hopefully more opportunities. Finally, just to cover off this one, the JIB plays a key role in promoting the importance of the sector in the future through its advocacy for technological advancements. This is essential as we navigate challenges like the energy transition, smart technologies, and some of the things we're going to talk about today, the need for sort of digital skills. Thanks, Andy, for sort of taking me forward. So in terms of the main elements of sort of JIB member benefits, the agreement is industry recognised. The wage negotiations are delegated, so it becomes a much more time and cost efficient process for you as an employer, JIB member or prospective JIB member. And it's just, I mean, that last point about industrial relations harmony, it's really worth just sort of mentioning that again, because I think without the JIB, it wouldn't be quite as harmonious as it's been. There are around 10,000 operatives and apprentices under the JIB agreement, and this sets a benchmark and boosts a company's reputation. And we also have money available for training through the Skills Development Fund for your qualified operatives. Next point, Andy. Under health and wellbeing, the JIB benefits scheme, which is a unique package of employee benefits that include private medical, sick pay insurance, and death in service, and I'll delve a little more into in the next slide. But specifically, this package will help differentiate yourself as an employer, critical in these times when attracting and retaining good talent is so important. Take me forward to the next one, please, Andy. Racing through. So just there's a lot on here. I'm not going to go through everything on here, but I'll sort of home in predominantly on the private medical cover, which is provided by Bupa. It's medical history disregarded, so there's no medical declaration required up front. Some of the key elements that people should know about, either as a JIB member or as a prospective JIB member, your operatives will get access to Bupa online services, which includes access to a GP through your phone. You could go onto your app now, get an appointment with the GP sort of today within a few hours. They can, depending on the condition, prescribe and have that sent to your local prescription sent to your local sort of pharmacy. People normally associate private medical with needing a referral from sort of a GP, which you can still go that route. But for certain conditions, we have something called agreed with Bupa called direct access services. So for cancer symptoms, mental health, muscles, bones and joints, particularly sort of relevant for our sort of sector, and just added heart and circulatory. There are specific numbers with Bupa that will take you through to area experts who will triage and sort of do initial sort of diagnosis and refer you forward for treatment without the need for a referral from a GP. So I won't delve any sort of deeper into that. I suppose to say, in summary, whether you're an employer or an employee, the benefits of aligning with the JIB are clear. It's a commitment and seen as a mark of as a quality employer, and a mark of sort of integrity. Bit of a race through. There'll be time for questions sort of later on. Thanks for your attention, and I'll hand back to Andy.
Zeshan, can I come to you?
Morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're dialing from. I am Zeshan Sattar, and I am from CompTIA. In a moment, too, I'll let you take you through our presentation that I want to kind of share, but give you a bit of flavor of what's going on in the industry in general, what we're talking about in terms of skills, what we're talking about in terms of where there are certain areas as representatives of your different businesses need to focus upon as we move into 2025. So without further ado, let's move on. So if you're on LinkedIn, I absolutely love LinkedIn, and that's my LinkedIn profile. I've had a very lucky career, I should say. I have had the pleasure of working through many countries around the world, and very much focused upon the kind of system admin, technical engineer side of things, with a specialism on cybersecurity. So there will be quite a bit of cybersecurity within this presentation. So slightly sorry about that one, but hey, it will all count. Trust me, okay? And if you are on LinkedIn, please connect with me. I'd love to know more about you and who I'm talking to. So, if you never heard about CompTIA, this is us. We have been around since 1982. So 1982, I'm sure not many of us remember. I was probably nappies or something. But essentially, what was going on in 1982 is a few organizations in the US got together and said, hey, we've got to do something about the industry. It was the age of the microcomputer, and the people just did not know what would that mean in terms of how much should it cost? What taxes should be levied? So these companies got together and worked together to lobby the US government essentially to do the right thing. And that's one thing that we kind of have in our in our blood as an organization. We always want to do the right thing. We're mainly now known for our certification program. So we are the leading body for cybersecurity, infrastructure, and data analytics certifications. And what we very much do is focus upon vendor neutral certification. We are unfortunately not the #1 certification body in the world. That will go to Microsoft. We love Microsoft because they're also a part of CompTIA. And there are over 4 million people globally who are CompTIA certified. And we have people with those certifications in over 230 countries. So I'm going to ask a bit of audience participation right now if we can. But hopefully it will work. So essentially, what we do a bit of a guessing game. So for those people who are probably as old as me, you might remember the Price is Right in the 80s. So again, 80s, 90s. So what percentage of leaders do you think have skills gaps in departments? So I'll wait a moment while you have a moment to put that in a chat box. So if you prefer in the Q&A box, whichever works for you. Department. So what do you think? Okay, I'll let you know then. It is 76%. So essentially, 3/4 of our organizations within their technology teams and across the environment, they just don't have the right skills. They're finding the case of there is something missing, or they just never counted for maybe a new policy coming down the line where they just need a skills gap. Thank you for anonymous attendee to guess 80%. So very close there. Okay, so next question is, what percentage of the UK workforce works in technology? So give you a few seconds for that one. Right, then I'll let you know. 64.4% of the UK workforce work in technology. So that's about 2.1 million people. We'll just look at the breakdown of that in just a moment too. And the final one on this slide is, what percentage of the tech workforce are female? So we very much want to make sure that we take everybody into the brave new world, because technology is all around us. I want to be able to do this webinar with you wonderful people if the magic of technology wasn't here. We've had someone guess 30%. You are too generous. Unfortunately, only 19% of the tech workforce is female. And I absolutely hate this statistic, because when I fell into the technology training side of the industry, when I noticed the lack of females in my training rooms, I said, what's that percentage? And it was around 18, 19% back in 2007. So we've got to do better as an industry. So I mentioned that 2.1 million people of the UK work in technology. Well, the way it's broken up is in the tech industry jobs. So what we're talking about is the technology companies, the Microsoft, the Googles, the MSPs, the managed solution providers, the MSSPs, managed security solution providers. There's about 1.4 million jobs. So, but the tech occupation jobs, which means people working in schools, hospitals, retail, and other organizations that you just are, the main business is not tech. A sizable chunk, 1.3 million people actually work there. So we are in that kind of case of almost got a 50-50 split between top people working in tech occupation jobs and people working in tech industry jobs. So we are in this position of we need more people. Now, if you look at a graph on the right-hand side there, what's going on by the end of the decade, we're going to need more people. So the reason we need more people, because there will be more tech jobs. Controversial, you might hear that AI will take our jobs. It won't, and I'll come to that in just a second. But the other bit is people will be retiring. Unfortunately, the tech industry is very mature, very experienced, and those wonderful, experienced people will be moving on. So we need the next generation to take replace those people and as well as fill the new jobs that are coming down the line. And in terms of the kind of jobs that we are currently hiring for, well, it kind of boils down into those different domains: development, support, cybersecurity, infrastructure, data, and tech enablement. So what we mean by tech enablement are people who are more managerial, maybe actually, planning and doing the processes and procedures to actually get the work done. Whereas the rest of the areas are, you can see, technical support, very much a big industry for us and always needed, because when things go wrong, who are you going to call? Well, unfortunately, ain't the Ghostbusters. It's going to be the tech support people that help us out. Infrastructure, we will not be talking right now with an absolute great telecoms and networking infrastructure, so we need those wonderful engineers to do that. Data, because we're going to talk about a lot of data in a second. What we're about data in a second, because there's a lot of out there and we've got to basically extract it, transform it, load it, analyze it, and actually make some database decisions from it. Cybersecurity underpins everything we do, and we will be talking about that in just a moment. So I'll keep that for a moment on one side. But development's a big one there. So 42% of the industry is actually, and that's hiring right now, is across software development. Now, that's quite interesting, because I'm seeing at the other hand side of things, and you may have seen as well, where we're seeing, well, development jobs may actually diminish a bit because of the whole idea of auto coding and AI enhanced coding were coming in. But we still need those people, and they need to actually become more masters of other technologies that you see on the right hand side. So all to come yet. Now, one of the things that we talk about with every single person in every single organization needs to have is digital fluency. So what we mean by digital fluency? So you may not be working in a tech role per se, but you may be, you're using a laptop, which is basically has all those wonderful productivity applications. You're actually having to make the reports and actually having to crunch data to actually deliver those reports. You're in that process of you're are in that kind of tech-enabled job. But at the same time, we need people to understand these tools and technologies really well, so you can actually harness them to actually be productive, because productivity unlocks revenue, and revenue is all good for all of us. So in terms of the research that we found in the top areas where there is need for those digital skills, the first one is data and analytics. So going back to this whole point of, you're probably using Excel, saying maybe you're using budgets, you're actually doing a bit of forecasting, you're actually looking at the case of, okay, if I do a bit of modeling and figure out, okay, right, if I take these actions, this is potential ROI, return investment. That all comes from data analytics. Number two, cybersecurity, because there is a lot of regulation out there and more coming down the line. And essentially, what we want to do is keep our souls safe, because the last thing we want to do is make our hard-earned money to be taken by the cyber criminals. AI is pervasive. I literally use AI every day. It's on my phone, it's on my laptop. I don't have a watch, I will probably be on there as well. But essentially, the whole idea of AI, you're going to have two types of people out there, is people who harness AI and people who don't. And we need to actually get our employees to use AI responsibly. Devices and hardware. Now we're doing a lot more remote working. People have to be able to understand how to configure, manage, and keep the device safe and working every day, because this is a tools of our job. And finally, applications, because if you don't know the productivity stack that you have in your organization and don't know how to use it to its fullest potential, things are going to take longer, slower, and it will take a long time. So you can see 74% of HR organizations out there, within organizations out there, are looking at those kind of skills. Now, I've teased you with AI, and the whole idea of it is we've said, well, where is it needed? Well, when our research said, well, very much the industry is saying right now, tech areas is the most needed place for AI. So again, data, cyber, IT infrastructure, software development. But even when you go down a bit below that, you got project management, finance, marketing. Still about 30% of the organization needs those AI skills within there to automate the tools and processes, and actually maybe be a critical eye. So rather than just saying to your colleague, hey, can you check this? You get an AI assistant to check that document before you forward it on to a client. Or there may be a case of you've got some information that needs to be rectified, or actually has to be double checked with different policies and regulations out there. Maybe it might be in different languages. Getting that AI assistant to help you maybe within legal or even within sales could be a great way to accelerate the process. And when we look a bit deeper, what do we want people to do with AI? Well, within data, there's a lot of data out there. We'll talk about that number in just a second. There's, they want to use it within analytics, 44% there. Input that data, because inputting is so boring. So why don't I get the AI to do it for us? Actually do that evaluation, give a bit of insights and trends from it. And also, last thing we want to do, and I think this is not just within data, across the industries, prompt engineering. How can you ask the right questions to get really good answers out of the system? Cybersecurity, well, there is a lot of vulnerabilities out there, lots of threats out there, and to actually be able to do it all as a human is very difficult. A lot of cybersecurity defense requires a lot of log analysis, which is a lot of boring text on screen. So understanding the vulnerabilities and getting that AI system to help you to do that is absolutely paramount, which ultimately improves cybersecurity. Infrastructure, we're all about automating our system, because in this case, we're talking about infrastructure as code and actually getting a system to maybe, if there's an outage in one area of the world and the geolocation of your cloud system, getting that AI system to kind of reroute that data to get to your systems would be a great little tooling process there. And finally, software, we talk about AI as a coding, but also getting the AI to write different algorithms for you. Wouldn't that be great? So as a software engineer in the past, I would absolutely adore that right now. Okay, so my favorite topic, cybersecurity. And why does it matter? Well, if you look at the UK government report from earlier this year, they did a data breach report. I think it was released around June time. And this is what they found out. Excuse me, in the cuff. Excuse me. Right. So half of the businesses reported they experienced a cybersecurity breach attack. Half of the businesses, absolutely crazy. I would probably venture that was a lot higher, because those are the organizations probably have the skills and the tooling to know that they were had a breach. There are probably a certain percentage of organizations that still don't even know they've had a breach. And the most common attack is phishing. So that usual email about, hello, this is me, please click on this link, and giving you a bit of fear or maybe a bit of reward to actually convince you to click on that link. Could be that an email from a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, or your CEO, Chief Executive Officer, that says, hey, please click on this link. I want to discuss this report with you. So it could be absolutely anything, which basically comes down and exposes the organization. Now, if you've had that a phishing attacking your organization, it happens. Remember, it's not a case of if, it's a case of when there will be a breach. And in that instance, it's not a case of you punish the employee, because if you punish the employee for doing that, well, and happening is no one will report anything. So having that open dialogue with all your employees and kind of building that good culture will help you to move forward. Now, the last one on this line is basically only 31% of businesses have actually undertook a cybersecurity risk assessment. That's crazy. When we're actually thinking about when you've got financial risks, where you talk about risk in terms of health and safety, we do a lot of risk assessment. But for some reason with cybersecurity, we just kind of brush it under the carpet. A bit scary for me. And going back to this skills gap, only half of the businesses have the actual skills, the basic technical skills. Now, I'll come back to basic in just a second. That's a bit of a misnomer, but that's a government's report. Only 11% of business actually review the risk posed by their suppliers. So one of the things is you may have all the best security in the world, you've got a great cybersecurity culture, but what ends up happening is something comes in from a supplier, which you just did not expect. So actually going and checking your suppliers, saying, hey, we adhere to these standards, we're doing this great work. Are you and will you and can you follow the same standards that we do? It's a nice conversation to have. And finally, only 18% of businesses actually provided any staff training related to cybersecurity, and both on the kind of awareness level, but also on a technical level. That is quite scary there, because we got all these great threats out there that are attacking us literally as we speak, and we're not actually getting our staff to protect ourselves. So data is absolutely being generated right now, as we've been speaking, and globally, there on every day we have 2.5 quintillion. That's quintillion bytes of data being created every day. Now, unfortunately, this is an old statistic going back a few years, so I'm assuming it's going to go up even higher. But that is the amount of data that's coming down the line. Now, when you talk about data, we've got to talk about regulations. Now, the data that regulation that everyone seems to know is GDPR, which is also the pirate's favorite regulation. And if you know anything about GDPR, it's something that was from the EU that we copied and pasted into the UK's law for the Data Protection Act 2018. So that's what it comes from. It's literally a copy and paste from the EU's GDPR. So if you're an organization, you must be collecting some kind of personal identifiable information, whether it's where your customer's name, data, credit card numbers, driver license information, maybe if you're working kind of a bit more medical field, maybe some medical information, or where they're based, where they're located. All this is personal identifiable information. So this is the kind of stuff that is actually as an organization, and you need to protect as part of the DPA, Data Protection Act 2018. And if you don't, unfortunately, bad thing happen. Now, I'm not doing this to scare you or anything like that. It's just a case of, look, again, that kind of not if, it's a when, but actually taking the right appropriate actions and steps will help you to get there and keep yourself safe. Now, the ICO might sound a bit scary, the Information Commission Office, but actually, if you work with them, if you're actually following their guidance and you have that open dialogue with them, they tend to actually, as an organization, wants to make you more secure and safe. And some things they do actually is they have a small business guide. Definitely, if you have a look at that, they have guides for larger businesses, or depending what size your organization is. But there is also a data protection fee that all organizations need to pay, depending on certain activity. So if you are not paying that fee, just double check on the website, go through the wizard. It tells you quite easily in a few questions whether you have to pay the fee or not. If you have to pay the fee and you are caught out, then there is a 150% fine on the top tier fee. So please make sure you do that. So why I'm telling you about GDPR and all about the ICO? Well, there is something coming out in 2025, which is the Cybersecurity and Resilience Bill. This will actually expand the remit of current regulations. So it's going to cover more systems, more organization, more industries. And the whole idea of this is that we're trying to protect the UK so it's less attractive to cyber attackers. In the last year, it was reported that UK is the third most attacked country around the world. So we have the third most cyber attacked country around the world. It's crazy. So that's why this bill will actually strengthen the regulators, i.e. the ICO, to enforce that we need the better controls on our systems. And there may be more cost recovery mechanisms in there, so more fines essentially. There will be a need to report if you've had a breach, but the whole point of this is by the fact that reporting will happen will ultimately keep everyone safer. Now, we don't know when it's going to come out just yet. It was announced at the King's Speech early in the year, but it's expected to be introduced in Parliament sometime in 2025. I wouldn't want to say an actual date there, but that is what it is. Now, one thing I want to do right now is kind of swap over to another question for you folks. So I'm going to just tell you one. There is a sequel that we love more than the first one. For me, it might be Terminator 2, or Karate Kid 2 was great as well. Sorry, 80s child. But another sequel that some people actually love more than the first one is NIST 2, Network Information System Directive version 2. You may not have heard of NIS2 because there's an EU directive. But why I'm telling you about NIS2 in the next few slides is because GDPR was a copy and pasted into the Data Protection Act 2018. The Cybersecurity Resilience Bill is now looking at NIS2 and saying, okay, what is going to copy and paste across into the Cybersecurity Resilience Bill? Okay, so what NIS2 does compared to NIS1, and actually NIS1 is enacted in the UK, which actually expands the scope. So essentially, but first of all, we had all those high critical sectors with NIS1, NIS2 actually said, okay, we're going to expand out. So you may be in one of those organizations there, manufacturing or research or maybe production of food or whatever it might be. You may be part of that expansion. So these are the kind of things that you will have to end up doing if you are going to be covered by NIS2 or the Cybersecurity Resilience Bill. And again, it might be a good idea to look at NIS2 because if you're doing business with Europe and you've got customers in Europe or you've got an offshoot company in Europe, it will be an expectation of you to have that kind of transpose what they're doing in Europe across into the UK operations. So these are 10-minute measures. I'm not going to try to go through all of them right now, but as you can see, it's risk assessments all are there. Talk about MFA, multi-factor authentication. Talk about how you're going to handle security incidents. We're going to talk about supply chain security. Pretty much all the kind of things we talked about before. But if you look on the right-hand side, there is a case of cybersecurity training is needed, and not just for like that basic computer hygiene, but we also talk about keeping your staff, your technical staff skills up to date. And if you don't have that technical staff, it's having somebody who can actually talk to your managed service providers, who can actually understand, and can ask the right questions to them, in terms of to not just what happens in terms of business continuity, disaster recovery after you've had that breach, but also how do you prepare, how do you identify, how do you protect your systems? Now, going back to the whole basic technical skills, those are the basic technical skills that the government says businesses don't have. Well, I would argue those aren't very basic in some cases. So backups, yeah, fair enough. But knowing who has admin rights, okay, I think that can requires a bit of technical skill there. Detecting and removing malware, setting up and configuring firewalls, definitely not basic, I think personally. And so definitely the last one, dealing with cybersecurity breach attack is definitely not basic, but this is what's been identified as a basic technical skills. As you can see, I'm a big fan of Everybody Lies. Some people say, yeah, we're very confident. Other people are being a bit more honest, saying, yeah, not very confident there. But it's a case of I always look at the middle people. The middle people is very kind of was more telling, and I think as you can see, choosing security settings, detecting and removing malware, setting up automatic updates, things that you think it's okay as a home user and you can probably muddle through. At a company level, at enterprise level, it just makes it a bit harder. So if those are the basic technical skills, and that's what the UK government is going to try to push towards us next year, how do we make sure we build those skills? Well, we're at CompTIA. We've been all about creating pathways and actually helping people to upskill across from beginner to expert. We have a certification. All our certifications are vendor neutral and job role led. So essentially, if you're looking at your organization thinking, okay, I have a tech support person. Now, do they have the right knowledge and skills and competencies to protect us? Well, make sure they're A+ certified. So all our certifications include a cybersecurity component because cybersecurity is part of everyone's job role. Regardless whether we're working in the cloud system, whether we're working with databases, we're doing any data analytics, you can see that every single job role will have a cybersecurity component. So I mentioned A+ for our good old technical support person. Great role to have in your organization if you don't have that one already. If you want to go a bit more deeper, we talk about Network Plus for network admins, Security Plus for anyone touching the security components of your organization, and then we've got a bit more advanced cybersecurity. I'm looking at the middle line here, by the way, folks. Okay, cybersecurity with CISA Plus for cybersecurity analysts, Pen Test Plus penetration testers, and our brand new updated certification, Security Access for security architects there. But as you can see at the top line there, if you've got data centers, then you need someone with Server Plus. If you've got someone working with any kind of DevOps systems, you might have Linux Plus. If you've got cloud systems, you've got Cloud Plus. So you get the idea that we're trying to enhance the entire organization with the skills, knowledge, competencies required to do the job role. And as I mentioned, all certifications are based on job roles. That I've just picked a few certifications out there. I forgot to mention our data science certification. So if you look at the kind of people of, right, we've got to create these AI models and what would that look like? Well, get data scientists to do that for you, which comes with our data X certification. There are a lot more job roles covered. I will share these slides and then you can actually click upon that link and go further. But going back to, we talk about NIS2 and the Cybersecurity Resilience Bill and where we're actually going as an industry. I would say we need a collaborative security culture. So it doesn't matter if you're like non-technical decision maker or you're working in kind of IT operations, or if you actually are working in security operations, lucky to have that, or if you have a technical security leadership, everyone needs to have that kind of a commitment to skill, reskill, and upskill. And the way we do it, we've already mapped our certifications to NIS2. Again, I want to dwell on the slide, but essentially what we've worked with EMEA, the European Cybersecurity Agency, to kind of say, correct, these are 10-minute measures. Now, how can we make sure we get the skills at the right level for the people? So never, ever, ever forget the non-technical decision makers, because these personas need to actually have the right knowledge and skills to be able to make informed decisions. And where are we as an organization? And we're actually cited by a whole lot of companies out there. So you can see lots of big names there. I'm sorry, I don't know the whole big names there. I'm sure some of the people on this call also use CompTIA certifications. So apologies, I missed you out. But it just shows you the kind of organization. So if whether you're working in retail, finance, or you're actually operating in a different vertical altogether, there is a case of a need for CompTIA certified professionals. So what I want to do is actually leave you with a kind of a mission, a call to action, and a case of trying to say, okay, where to next? Well, first of all, I recommend investing in digital fluency across your organization. So that will actually help our industry to enhance our workforce. We just have to focus upon making everyone digital fluent. We have to ensure that digital skills development, whatever level, in a beginner, intermediate, advanced, expert, is part of continuous development. It becomes a part of our organization culture. We can't just say, tick in the box this year, done, let's move on. Let's actually go back to our individual and say, look, we want you to upskill yourself. We want you to kind of get to the next level. What can we do to do that? As a certification body, we work in tandem with industry associations, and we actually want to raise standards and maintain excellence. That's why we're here with JIB to kind of actually do that. And finally, I would say digital skills are essential for staying competitive, compliant, and for our businesses to be future ready. So folks, I know there's a lot of information unloaded here today, but the main thing is if we make that first step today, yes, we want to do this. Yes, we want to benchmark our staff. Yes, we want to keep that continuous culture of learning working. We're already 80, 90% there. The next part is to kind of have that motivation to do it every single day. Okay, so with that one, I will pass it back to Andy.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Zeshan. That was one, I think Roger said earlier, particularly interesting. It's great to see there is, I think, so much help out there for organizations. That certainly comes through. I think the point you made, some of the basic skills are not basic. There is a lot that businesses need to think about. I think there's a lot that people need to think about what's coming down the line. So great to see, and certainly be good to delve into some of that in terms of the questions. So I said that I would very briefly touch on ECS, and a lovely segue in terms of that industry collaboration piece that Zeshan talked about for raising standards. So for those of you that don't know, ECS Electrotechnical Certification Scheme is a digital personal certification system for looking at visibility of individual competence. Ultimately, this is putting together the necessary skills, knowledge, experience, behaviors for an occupation, and then how do we certify that? How do we evidence that that has been completed by that person, are they who they say they are, but also do they have the right competencies for the job that they're doing? And that's ultimately what ECS provides in a digital and physical form. building up experiences through qualifications, through apprenticeships, through certifications, but also through employer endorsement, through a number of years on the job. It is about building in the elements like health and safety awareness and technical assessments with CPD and revalidation. And ultimately, yes, there is a physical bit of plastic still, but it's trying to do a lot. It's trying to fit a lot of information onto a record for an individual. And ultimately, it's why I always say, use the digital systems, look at what's available on the My ECS app, look at what's available on the employer portal for companies, because what we're trying to do here is support that individual to evidence their professional status and provide you as an employer or a client with a standardized view of what this role is, what this occupation is, get people into work as quickly as possible. So, or supporting all of that journey. And where are we at the moment in terms of ECS? Well, we'll be doing somewhere between 60, 65,000 registrations this year, maybe a few more with a strong kind of end of year. And the digital side of the systems has been a big focus for the last 3-4 years, really. Probably do 55,000 remote invigilation assessments using our own AI solution for technical assessments and for things like health, safety, environmental awareness. Ultimately, we've seen growth now over 180,000 valid card holders UK-wide, more than 5,000 companies using our employer portal service, and covering certainly over 60% of the electrical workforce market, but we are a far broader scheme than just electrical contracting. So as we talked about some of the kind of traditional systems earlier for installation, for maintenance, for design, commissioning, whatever it may be, we also have to consider there's a lot of members and a lot of scope for ECS as well, across things like network infrastructure, across telecoms and the cellular industry, across controls into the digital space as well. And that was really what I was going to cover off today. Going back to a project that came up in 2022, and this was really through a number of our members and a number of ECS employer portal users needing recognitions for their teams that were operating in not just data centers, but that was one of the kind of the biggest areas that we saw in terms of regulation scope. But people knew the systems that apply for, say, their installation teams, network infrastructure or network support, whatever it may be, and they were looking for something that could be used equally for industry recognition of those digital skills. So we set up a digital group, which was broken down into 3 kind of main categories of digital support, network support, and digital security. And ultimately, they developed a framework which was then approved by the ECS steering committee and its technical groups, doing a lot of the mapping that Zeshan talks about of what are the relevant UK standards, how can we take lots of different qualifications, lots of different assessments, lots of different certifications, and provide a simple to use system. So what we had to look at was a very wide panacea of skills and occupations that exist, probably kind of one of the largest in terms of scope, and try to provide something that was easy to understand. So that's partly around clients and employers knowing kind of what the background of an individual is, but also how do we encourage good career progression? How do we explain to somebody that might be new into the industry, that might be kind of leaving school or university or college or whatever it may be, and wants to get into a career? So what does good look like for them? What could the options be? So as I say, it's broken down into these kind of digital support areas, those around network support, and then digital security, so covering a wide base of occupations and routes. And what we did was start to map this out against the traditional educational levels you see in the UK. So people will be familiar kind of level 1, 2, 3 qualifications, etc. What does that mean in terms of I suppose the expectations on the role of when does somebody become able to work independently without the necessity for direct supervision, and then how do they build up some of those higher level attributes as well for ensuring systems, to get into more of the analysis and the strategy side of work, and then try to align this with some of the existing UK frameworks. So I think Sophia was mentioned earlier in terms of security. There are a number out there that exist in this sector, and again, trying to align with what's already out there, not reinventing the wheel. So for those of you that again familiar with ECS, you've probably seen the kind of colors of cards that we produce, and ultimately this relates to those levels. So red being those that are in training, those that require direct supervision, into blue for operative level, normally at level 2, and above those that are starting to follow instructions to assist skilled qualified individuals with their work, into ultimate full gold card being somebody that has been deemed as meeting the baseline competency for their occupation. Now, that could be the outcome of an apprenticeship, that could be the outcome of a work-based vocational qualification or similar, but ultimately it's always a starting point. That to me is the start of a journey, which then builds out into, well, what else is available in terms of CPD, in terms of career progression. Yes, management is one route, but it's not the only route. What we certainly see in this space, and using a perhaps slightly out of date CompTIA image, is a huge amount of certifications that are already out there. I know Zeshan put this one together a couple of years ago. There are a few that are now missing in terms of your offerings and probably some of the wider offerings. But there are lots of certifications out there. There's lots of training available. There's lots of courses. They all have their kind of strengths and weaknesses. We promote something, as again Zeshan mentioned, that is vendor neutral, that should be job based, that should be applying the knowledge, putting things into practice. So ultimately, this is what we went through as a group and it's something that we'll be looking to update as well in the next year or two, to make sure that we are aligning ECS and what the options are for that career progression with what the industry is seeing and these necessary skills. So huge amount of information out there, lots of different options. We'll make sure that we send around the slides afterwards as well. But if you do have a need to get any of your team certified in this area, ECS team will be happy to help with what the options are, what those qualifications, apprenticeships, diplomas, VQ certifications that exist out there across all of the different industry partners, and hopefully give you some, I suppose, enhanced value as well in terms of what good progression looks like. So thank you very much to everybody for listening. I know that we've already had quite a few questions come through on Zeshan's slides. So what I will do is, if that's all right with yourself, Zeshan, I'm going to focus on you first. I'm going to give you all the difficult stuff, and we'll take the easy questions at the end. So firstly, one of the questions, I think particularly for SMEs, which, you know, for JIB will be probably 70-75% of its membership, how do smaller companies, or those maybe with less resource, overcome some of the barriers to adopting digital skills? Well, what do you see as biggest challenges? How do we overcome that? How do we better support?
Oh gosh, that's a very difficult question, and the whole SME, I always kind of find that quite a wide range. Like small to medium, and how big is medium, that kind of thing. Okay, so in a nutshell, what is required first of all is, now you don't know what you don't know first of all. So it's a case, okay, maybe it's a case of doing a skills assessment. We actually offer a free skills assessment at CompTIA to kind of say, correct, put your stuff through this, and then you'll know what you did not know, and then you can actually then create a plan. The other thing is a case of looking at the idea, okay, where do you want to be in a year's time, 3 years time, 5 years time, and then working your way backwards. I think those are the two main areas you can do, is like do a skills assessment and try to understand where direction of your business, and then you can work your way backwards of right, okay, what that's the textbook question you want to answer, right? How do we get there?
Yes, as you say, a very wide scope of businesses that all going to experience their own challenges. I don't think anybody is exempt from this. One of the points you mentioned right at the start, in terms of the workforce, was the piece on diversity. There's a question that's come in about how do you get a more diverse workforce needed for the future, particularly when looking at gender. Is there anything that's working for you at the moment? Is there anything that CompTIA has found that's been particularly effective? I know from traditional electrical contracting that the split foot on site or in project roles is normally around 97.5% male to about 2.5-3% female.
Gosh.
Yes, yeah. And that's better than some. But there's obviously huge amount we'd like to do, huge amount we'd like to support. Is there any learnings that you can bring in this area?
Yeah. So I think it's we have to attack the problem again in two different ways. First of all, I love that slide you had with all the digital card progression. And I noticed you got mentioned things like T levels, apprenticeships, and doing work placements. Definitely that's will help us get that next generation in. As going back to the kind of small business, small to medium enterprise, what can you do? Going and engaging with schools and colleges in your area and saying, encourage them to about you and about your organization, understand what you guys do, and then bringing them in that way. But the biggest thing for me is, and I'm sure we all see it all the time, is that when you go into Tesco and you see all those automated systems there, those tills that never really work for me, unfortunately, and you think, where are the humans? So looking at the career changes and saying, okay, right, what can I do? Because the best thing you have is looking at people who've got the life experience, understand how the world works, and then you can just literally plug the tech on top. So not just focusing upon the new talent that's coming in from universities, colleges, and schools, but also then getting that talent in that are working in these organizations that have been automated out in some ways, and then bring them into your organization. Right? Okay, saying, we will teach you the digital skills, or you might have somebody already working in your organization doing some great stuff on Excel, and they always come up with the great ideas. Well, why don't you empower those individuals saying, okay, why don't you be a center of excellence of this technology, and really let's get you upskilled. So I think those are the ways to do it.
Again, one of the questions that came in talking about, and this is one of everybody's favorite topics about AI, is how many of the roles you identified earlier end up being disrupted by, or perhaps delivered entirely by AI. I have my own opinions on this. I'd just love to hear your thoughts.
So we have a report, the AI impact report. You'll find on the CompTIA.org website, CompTIA.org website even. Basically, we found that there are currently about over the last 12 months, about 5,000 jobs were advertised. Only 7% of those jobs were actually pure AI roles. The rest were saying they need AI skills, for example, prompt engineering, and things like knowing what to do with data, and even just saying like business understanding of some business acumen of AI. So essentially it's more about the skill versus I'm going to be a guru.
I agree, and I think that AI is a wonderful tool for assisting people already in the roles to enhance that productivity, to do everything that we want to do. To me, it's not about replacing people. It's a wonderful, valuable tool, though. Roger, a couple for you, if I may. So one of the questions came up, which was, how is, I suppose, JIB membership helping firms generally, but I suppose in this area as well, how can membership better support companies? And particularly there was a question about funding for certification. So open that up to you first, and then maybe bring that back to Zeshan as well in terms of potential partnerships and things like that.
This is one of the really interesting sort of things in terms of this sort of webinar and this sort of chat. There seems to be quite a lot of appetite And just going back to some of the earlier sort of questions around SME size of businesses, we've got varying, very wide sort of variance of size of business and how we can support them in this area. I think the link across to sort of CompTIA and the certification, it'd be good to explore how that partnership could be sort of structured to give our members access to perhaps some sort of structure of sort of discounts as a certification sort of partner, and then obviously some guidance in how we would perhaps signpost people to actual training providers, because obviously, if I'm understanding it right, CompTIA is the certification provider. If you get to the point of needing to get some actual sort of delivery, how do we sort of signpost people to sort of training, actual sort of training providers that can meet those needs? In terms of funding, I mean, I think probably direct funding. I'm not sure whether our sort of, and maybe you'd help me on this one, Andy. The Skills Development Fund, I don't think necessarily would pick this up sort of at the moment, but that's perhaps something to explore outside of the webinar. But there are certainly, I think, some avenues to discuss around potential discounts for our sort of members in terms of the sort of CompTIA sort of certification.
Zeshan, can I come to you on that one?
Absolutely. Okay, look, no, we are absolutely big fans of JIB. We want all the members to thrive and really unlock their potential. Folks, first thing to do is, if you have heard something on this webinar you like the idea of and actually committing to this culture of continuous learning, get in touch with the JIB. Put the stake in the stand saying, right, we're going to do this in 2025. We're working on the mechanics with JIB. We'll to share the discounts and how we can do the training. We have also recently launched a product where you can do the training through CompTIA, so there we can share information about that as well. But the main thing is, first of all, is let's break that door down and get in touch with JIB, and let's make it happen. And in a few days or so, we'll be able to unveil our offerings.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And the question around the JIB's Charitable Armed Skills Development Fund, that does provide funding for what's called additional occupations. So where somebody's eligible for funding, working for a JIB company, might traditionally be something like an electrician, but they're moving into, say, it might be network support, might be digital sport, or in some of the digital security areas. We have seen some of that transition as well. Then there may be some funding available. So as long as that is one of the industry recognized routes, so what ECS has already recognized, then yeah, potentially that's there. So indeed, as Roger and Zeshan said, get in touch. More than happy to have that conversation with companies as well. And probably membership at jib.org.uk would be the best way to do that. Come through to Roger, and him and the team will pick up from there. There are, say, a few more questions come back. I'm going to try and rattle through these because I know we are at the deadline at the moment. Are digital skills covered under the collective bargaining agreement? No, not specifically in isolation. However, there are some references to, I suppose, future emerging technologies. You might get something that's covered under there in terms of, I'm thinking about future of, for people in maybe programmable areas or controls, obviously digital skills, how that comes into traditional electrical markets, but nothing specifically at the moment in terms of standalone occupations. And one question, I suppose, on cyber, which was the question was, what's the most effective way to tackle some of the challenges that come around cyber? Is this I suppose the operational needs of the business, those that might be slightly more risk averse? How do you do some of that? Again, you answered, I suppose, some of this in terms of the impact assessment that will come down to what the business needs to put in place. But it'd be great to hear your thoughts briefly.
Right. So very briefly, there's two things I would ask the person who asked that question to look up. The first one is the NIST, National Institute of Science and Technology, CSF, Cybersecurity Framework version 2. That lays down how you can get an organization to be a bit more mature in its cybersecurity journey. It has several steps: identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, all surrounded by governance. So governance is a key to that risk assessment side of things. The next one I would recommend that you look up is the CIS Top 18, Center for Information Security Top 18. Those are the top 18 security controls that an organization should do. Number one is know what you have, identify your assets. So there's no point doing any security if you don't know what you have. So having those two frameworks to hand will actually help you to improve your cybersecurity maturity. If that sounds a bit difficult right now, please look up Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. That will get you part of the way there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And the last question, I think, leads me into a conclusion very nicely, which is how do companies get more information? Lots of information coming your way. Back to what I said earlier, do have questions, please get in touch with Roger and the team first and foremost, membership@jib.org.uk, and we can certainly refer you on from there as well. So thank you very much, Roger, Zeshan, for your time today, and I look forward to speaking to you all soon. Thank you, everybody, for attending.